Hey YA, we got John chapter 2 today, where we have a couple stories I want to highlight. The first is Jesus turning water into wine in verses 1 through 11, where we have this wedding that's happening in Cana, and the hosts, they run out of wine. It's this major social embarrassment that's happening, and Jesus' mother Mary, who's in attendance, tells him about the problem, and then Jesus goes on to instruct the servants to fill these large jars with water, and he miraculously turns that water into this really high quality wine, higher quality than they had been serving before, which is actually his first recorded miracle, which is pretty cool. But why is this story important? Well, it shows us a few things. First, it reveals Jesus' glory. Right, this miracle shows his divine power over creation. It also builds faith. The disciples begin to believe in him more deeply here. And then there's some symbolism involved as well. It points to transformation. Jesus brings something better and something new, often seen as a picture of the new covenant and spiritual renewal. And then it also shows care for people, right? Jesus meets a real life need, showing that God cares about both spiritual and everyday concerns of his people. Now, the second story is Jesus clearing the temple in verses 13 through 22. Now, Jesus goes on to the temple in Jerusalem and finds these merchants selling animals and these money changers taking advantage of worshipers. And he makes this whip, he drives them out, he's overturning tables and rebukes them for turning God's house into a marketplace. Why is this important? Well, it shows a few other things here. It shows that Jesus' authority. It shows his holiness. He defends the honor of God's house. It reveals something called righteous anger. Not all anger is wrong. And it shows that he's passionate about true worship. It also calls for pure worship. God desires the sincerity, not corruption or exploitation. And it also points to his identity. He's referring to his body here as the true temple, hinting at his death and resurrection. So together, these stories show two sides of Jesus' mission. The first is grace and provision, right, turning water into wine. And then we see holiness and justice and the clearing of the temple. Now, they reveal that Jesus not only brings new life, but also cleanses and restores what's broken, both in worship as well as in our hearts. So I've got a few application points to add to this as well. The first is to trust Jesus with your everyday needs. That's the very first thing we should be doing. The second is to obey even when it doesn't seem to make sense. He doesn't always operate in the way we hope and expect him to. But he always operates and does the best thing for us. The third is to expect transformation. Expect change to happen. The fourth is to keep your worship genuine. Jesus was very passionate about removing that corruption and really passionate about true worship. The fifth is to let Jesus cleanse or clean out what doesn't belong within our hearts. And then the last is to be passionate about what honors God. These are some action steps that you can take. We can always talk more in depth at some time, at Young Adults or on the Hey YA GroupMe app. But there's some few application points from John chapter 2. Hope your day is incredible. Happy Tuesday. Have a wonderful day.